flawless English translation for the second part of your story. Winter had reached its peak, and the Chela, the deepest 40 days of winter, held Kabul tight in its pale, numb embrace. The days dragged on heavily, but for Setareh, every single day was a silent battlefield, a war waged between the hope burning in her heart and the dread of the unknown pulsing through her veins. A message in the snow. One evening near sunset, as the Kabul sky turned a shade of dusty rose and gray, Setareh stepped out to sweep the snow off the balcony ledge. The alley was deserted, and the distant caw of crows echoed from the hills of Kartasaki. Right then, the door of the opposite house creaked open, and Ahmad stepped out. But this time was different. Ahmad wasn't in a rush. He stopped, looked straight up at the balcony, and gently placed his hand over his heart. Then, using his finger, he carved 3 large letters into the thick snow resting on their courtyard wall. S.T.R. The heavy snow didn't allow him enough space to finish her full name, but those 3 letters alone struck like an earthquake in the young girl's heart. Ahmad looked up, flashed a smile, and quickly slipped back inside. Unstoppable joy. Setareh pressed her hand tightly over her mouth to stifle the shriek of pure delight before it could echo down the alley. Her cheeks burned with a sudden warmth, a heat that no sandali or kerosene heater could ever pump into her veins. For hours afterward, she twirled around her room, softly whispering her own name just the way Ahmad would have spoken it. A new hardship. Rumors in the alley. But joy in today's Kabul has a fragile, trembling footing. A few days later, while Setareh was working in the kitchen, she overheard her mother talking to a neighboring woman. The neighbor said in a sharp, knowing tone, "They say Asaf Khan's eldest son, Ahmad's father, is planning to leave. He wants to cross illegally into Iran or Turkey. There are no jobs here. The youth are just wandering lost." The dish slipped from Setareh's hand. The world spun and went dark before her eyes. Ahmad was leaving? Without a word? Without a single goodbye? Setareh's ultimate nightmare had begun. The temporary pain of not seeing him for a few days had morphed into the terrifying horror of never seeing him again. The winter in her room felt colder than ever before. She couldn't even step outside to ask him, "Ahmad, is it true you are leaving?" The towering walls of tradition and shame had sewn her lips shut, weaving fables of longing and exile. That night, the small moshak lamp in Setareh's room offered no warmth at all. The Kabul winter battered the window panes with fierce gusts of wind as Setareh lay beneath her quilt, wiping away silent tears. Yet her stubborn, loving mind refused to surrender to despair. Even in the depths of hopelessness, it began to weave. She refused to create a tragic ending, so she closed her eyes and, in the pitch black of her room, conjured a different tale. Ahmad goes on his journey. He travels through distant lands, crossing foreign mountains and desolate plains, but he takes the woolen scarf, the one I loved so much, with him. One day, while sitting on a chair in a faraway cafe abroad, he writes a letter. The postman brings it all the way back to Kabul. On the paper it reads, "Setareh, I left to build a home where the walls are low. I left to find a road where we can walk hand in hand. Wait for me. Your traveling bird will return." A light in the darkness. 2 weeks passed in this grueling, agonizing limbo of fear and hope. Setareh had grown thinner, her eyes constantly glued to the road outside. Until one Friday morning, a faint tap-tap echoed against her window pane. Setareh rushed to pull the curtain aside. Ahmad was standing on his rooftop. The snow had stopped, and the sky was bright, though biting cold. He held a small pocket mirror, catching the sunlight and flashing it against Setareh's window to get her attention. The moment he saw her looking back, he held up a crisp white piece of paper. Written on it, in bold, clear handwriting, were the words, "I am staying. forever. Ahmad pressed the paper tightly against his chest and locked his gaze with Setareh's tearful yet smiling eyes. He hadn't left. He was staying right here in the city, amidst all the hardships, to fight for a future with his Setareh. The Kabul winter was far from over, but in the heart of that dark, narrow alley, Kabul's spring had already blossomed. Kabul's spring was slowly beginning to thaw the ice in the alleyways, but Setareh and Ahmad's hearts remained as restless and inflamed as a volcano simmering beneath the ash. That message, "I'm staying," had been nothing short of a miracle, but the sheer thirst to see, hear, and breathe in one's beloved had finally pushed them to the edge. Staring through window panes and exchanging coded signals with pocket mirrors was no longer enough. They were starving for a single moment of real presence, a plot in the Kabul twilight. One Tuesday night, when a blackout plunged the entire neighborhood into pitch darkness, Ahmad sent their usual signal by waving a white cloth over his balcony. With immense effort, he had managed to pass a crumpled piece of paper to Setareh through a young neighborhood girl. Written on it was just a single line: "Tonight, at 2 a.m., the rooftop, by the water tank." Setareh's heart hammered so violently upon reading those words that she feared her mother, sitting right beside her, would hear it. Going to the rooftop at 2 in the morning? Especially in today's Kabul, where night patrols aggressively combed the streets? If she were caught, it wouldn't just mean her ruin. It would mean the destruction of her entire family. Yet, the longing to be held by Ahmad was far more powerful than the dread of death. A covert operation in the dark. The clock struck 2 a.m. The heavy rhythmic breathing of her parents signaled they were fast asleep. With her heart lodged in her throat, Setareh gently tossed her blanket aside. She slipped into her woolen socks so her footsteps wouldn't echo against the house's mud and wood stairs, then tightly wrapped her black chador around herself. Every creak of a step beneath her feet brought her one heartbeat closer to panic. She opened the rooftop door with the absolute minimum noise. The biting midnight air of Kabul whipped against her face. The city lay in dead silence and absolute darkness, with only the faint glow of the moon reflecting off the half-melted snow. With trembling steps, Setareh walked toward the large water tank that marked the boundary between their rooftop and Ahmad's house. Suddenly, a warm, firm hand clamped over her mouth from behind, pulling her swiftly into the dark shadow of the tank. Racing hearts and the taste of a first kiss. Setareh instinctively wanted to scream, but the familiar scent of Ahmad's cologne and the intense warmth of his hands instantly calmed her. He let her go, and both of them huddled tightly behind the tank, completely shielded from the view of the alley and the surrounding houses. Ahmad was breathing heavily, his hands trembling. His eyes shone intensely in the dark of the night. For the first time in all these months, they were mere inches apart. "Setareh," Ahmad whispered, his voice barely audible through a mix of excitement and terror. "You have no idea how much I died just waiting for this exact moment." Setareh could only look at him. Her cheeks burned hot, caught between the freezing night air and the sheer intoxication of his presence. Ahmad stepped closer, closing the distance between them to absolute zero. He brought his rough, warm hands forward, carefully framing Setareh's face between his palms. He gently traced his thumb across her soft cheek, wiping away a tear of joy that had involuntarily slipped down. Ahmad locked his gaze with hers, as if silently asking for permission. Setareh closed her eyes, a gesture of absolute surrender to love. Ahmad leaned in closer. He pressed his warm lips gently, yet with all the wild passion and pent-up longing of those brutal months, against Setareh's trembling lips. That kiss was no ordinary kiss. It tasted of freedom. It tasted of open rebellion against every high wall in Kabul, a triumph over the winter and their crushing isolation. In those fleeting seconds, time stopped completely. There was no fear, no